ranking AFL bottom teams for 2024. Now, I'm going to start off with Collingwood. Now, they have a C. The reason why I put them as C is they showed glimpses of what they can do, and they were percentage away from making finals. Now, if they had lost maybe another couple more games, I would have put them around probably E or F. Collingwood beat Brisbane Lions twice. One at the Gabba, one at the MCG, with a comeback of about 35 points. Melbourne, they beat twice at the MCG, obviously. Yeah, they had some good wins, though, against Port Adelaide at the G. Carlton on Scott Pendlebury's 400th. They beat Adelaide at the MCG. They had two draws against Fremantle and Essendon. Now, if they won both of them, potentially they could have nearly made top four, which is crazy to think about. But they would have been about fifth on the ladder if they had won those two games. So there's a lot to consider. Injuries definitely didn't help, but at the same time, there's quite a few Collingwood players that are getting older. Still side bottom could be playing on. Scott Pendlebury will be playing on, and Johnny Noble has just requested a trade from Collingwood to anywhere outside Victoria. So who knows what's going to happen this off-season. Is Mason Cox going to have another go? I think he is. There's so much to consider at the moment for Collingwood, but I'm sure every Collingwood fan would rather a premiership and miss the finals for maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 years. But yeah, that's where I'm putting them at C. At C-, I have the St Kilda Football Club. Now, they've been teasing us for the past probably 8, 9, 10 years. They almost make finals, but then they just fade off. And then once their season is over, they play some really good football. Like, I just don't understand at all. St Kilda play a lot better without Max King. Is that a potential that he gets traded? Now, if I was St Kilda, I would probably trade him. The reason why I would trade him is because he's not reliable on his set shot kicking. And he does get the yips quite a bit. And I feel like they're a much better side. And if they play slow football, they're not going to win anything, because I think they average about 60 points if they play slow football. But if they play fast football, they average over 100. So I feel like if St Kilda want to play football finals in the next 10 years, surely get an actual proper full forward or get a couple more midfielders that are going to be in their prime, go to the drafting board a little bit more, and they're going to be sweet. St Kilda had some good wins against Sydney Swans. They were 13-1 at that point. And then, they just played some terrific football. They had great wins against Collingwood at the MCG early in the year. I think it was round 4, if I'm not mistaken. No, round 3. Obviously, they had a really good win against my Catters. They just dominated that second half. And Jack Steele's gun. They've got some really good players. Jack Sinclair is a gun. Jack Higgins, he played some really, really good football. And I'm surprised he wasn't in the All-Australian, to be honest. Rowan Marshall, on another level. So they've got a lot of really good players. Obviously, they just need to go to the trading block a little bit more. And I reckon even the draft, get some quality players in from Victoria, I'd say, because most likely they will request a trade back home at some stage. Going to be a great quality outfit if they play their fast football. And so I'm going to put them at C-. D+, I have the Adelaide Crows. Now, they had really good wins against Carlton, Bombers, Dogs at home, and they had a good first showdown win against Port Adelaide. Concerning thing is they lost quite a few games at home. So they've lost to the Cats, D's, Bombers, Port in the second showdown, Tigers, Swans, and Hawks by about 72 points. So 66 actually, 11 goals. So they had an inconsistent year now. They were close against Collingwood, Geelong, a few other teams that I cannot remember at the top of my head. Now, the real question is this the last time we see Taylor Walker at the Adelaide Crows? And will Riley, what's his name? I can never pronounce his name, so I'm not going to. will he step up and be the next key forward for the next decade? Off-season for Adelaide, maybe they can get a few players in. I think they're looking at a couple of players. Joe Richards, I think, is a South Australian, and they could even potentially get, what's his name? Johnny Noble, potentially, because he's from South Australia, if I'm not mistaken. So that could be a really good pickup because he's been an elite player. Now, D+ is where I will put Adelaide Crows. Now, I think this is a fair. Comment below what you think, and bring on 2025 for Adelaide. I think they will continue to get better and potentially push for a top 8 spot in the next 2 years. In D, I have Essendon. Now, they've been competitive for most of the year. They've had a few, about probably 40 to 60 losses, probably about 3 or 4 times. And the close wins they've had against Saints, Crows, Eagles, Tigers, Pies, and Freo by 1 point. After that comeback by 27 points in that last term. Now, they've had some really good wins, and they have been competitive. The reason why I've got them here is because they were in the top 4 or top 8 for most of the year. And I feel like they're another team that teases us because they do have a lot of talent. They do tend to go well for probably a quarter of the season, and then they just fade out. So that's another season for them. I feel like they have gone 2 steps forward and 3 steps back at the moment. I don't know what to say for Essendon really, because I feel like it's just the same repetitive thing. If I was an Essendon fan, which I'm not, I'm glad, I'd be very, very frustrated. And I feel like there's some poor leadership, especially up top, like the CEO, everything like that. I'd say maybe 3 to 5 years, they'll be a finals contender side again. I feel like they will finish probably about 12th next year, 13th. We'll see what happens. In E, I have the Gold Coast Suns. Now, the positives for them, they only lost 1 game at home on the Gold Coast, and they won all the other games. Now, the only loss they had up in the Gold Coast was Melbourne. I think they lost by about 54 to 66 points. I can't remember exactly. I think it was 54. And they both won the games they played in Darwin by an average margin of 66 points. That's incredible. Now, they had a record of the amount of number of wins they had. Now, they still can't make finals, though. That's the thing that has really annoyed me with the Suns. Just sometimes they just don't become competitive enough. They've got so much talent on their team, and they're going to get even more talented, especially with their academy, which, you know, as a Victorian, so unfair. No, it's kidding. It's actually fair. Yeah, they've got just so much talent. Or maybe next year they could make the top 8, or I reckon give them maybe 3 more years before they're a top 8 contender. That's my prediction. Now, they've got all the tools. They've got probably one of the best coaches in the modern era, Dimmer, and they've got some great assistant coaches. Sean Griggs up there. I'm looking forward to seeing how they go. Ben King is an absolute gun, and he's more reliable than his brother. You got Sam Flanders. Absolutely incredible year, but we'll see what happens with the Suns in the next year. The reason why I put them E, because they've got so much talent. I didn't put them in F because they didn't make finals. They weren't a finals contender team at the start of the season for me. So that's the reason why I put them there. 3 years' time, finals contention. Now, I have in 2 Fs, Melbourne Football Club and Fremantle Dockers. Fremantle blew it. They really blew it. They had a chance to make finals. All they had to do is win by 1 point or more, and they didn't do it. They just blew it. They had too many fumbles, and the whole season, they've just, they haven't been great. They've had plenty of opportunities to win games, and so I'm not sure what's to go there. They're still a really young side. Nat 5's probably going to have 1 more year in him, and then he will retire. They're back line. They've got a really good back line. They've got Luke Ryan, who's an absolute gun. Congratulations to him for making it. And Jordan Clark, he just needs to get his temper organised and attitude right, and he's right. And then Melbourne Football Club, well, Melbourne Football Club, they've just become, they're going downhill. They're not making finals for the next 5 years. They do have a lot of young players and a lot of good players, but Max Gawn can't do it alone. Christian Petrarca wants out, supposedly. I'm not sure. Just heard reports. And also, Clayton Oliver's probably going to be traded in the next few years. Maybe. That's my review on those two sides. And yeah, there's not much more I can really add. The next one I have is Bring On 2030. Now, obviously, I'm going to do a video on this and talk in more depth about West Coast, Richmond, North Melbourne. Now, West Coast, they positive. I think they only had 100-point loss, 1 or 2. So that is a positive. Things weren't looking great in round 24 against the Cats. I'm a Cats fan. I'm like, oh, can we get a 150-point win? No, credit to them. But Harley Reid, you need to lock him in for another 9 years. You have to if you're West Coast. North Melbourne, they've gone 3 steps back and 18 digs back. They're just, I don't know what's going on with them. Obviously, their list isn't that great. Obviously, they need a key forward. So maybe to help out Nikolaki, they can get another key forward. Josh Shaki, he could come in. And Richmond, well, Shea Bolton, Dan Rioli, Liam Baker are all gone. Obviously, they're all contracted though, so anything can happen. But Richmond, just go to the trade for the next probably 5 years, rebuild, and everything's going to be okay because they're a proud club and they don't stay down for long. Thank you so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed my analysis breakdown on some of the teams. The West Coast, North Melbourne, and Richmond, I will talk more in depth in another video. And yeah, looking forward to it. Subscribe to the channel and like the video and comment down below your thoughts. Anyways, hope you enjoyed. Peace.